Hello everyone, welcome to a very special video from Specialized Boarding School, Shawad. Today, I have Farrux with me with a very special, commendable result in something special. A Band 8 overall in IELTS academic test. Farrux, congratulations.
Thank you.
How do you feel today?
I'm feeling very good.
Do you remember the time you received the result through text message or maybe you checked it online? What did you feel and what was the first thing you did soon after you got your result?
The first moment whenever I received my IELTS result was very shocking actually, because I didn't anything high than 7.5, and once I had opened it, the message and entered through the website, I saw my overall score was 8, and it was very helpful or sort of
A
necessary
true
thing.
achievement,
Yes.
I would say. Did you talk to your parents soon after you got your result?
Yes, I talked to my parents definitely immediately after I received an email and saw my result, and they were even more happier than me.
Can you describe that moment?
Actually, at first I talked to my mom, who was at home. My dad was at his workplace, if I'm not mistaken, and my mom was very happy with my result, and she congratulated me with my result, and everything was very good actually.
Celebrating some achievements of this kind at home is special, but I'm sure you must have had a bigger celebration with your friends and teachers in the school. How was it? Who was the first person you talked to after this in the school?
It was my English teacher, Gloria teacher actually. At first I waited, and then I talked to my dad teacher, and she was very happy about it. She was impressed by my result actually.
I know you have already taken 2 tests. So when was your first test?
It was on the 2nd of November.
2nd of November. And you ended with 7.5 overall.
Yes.
What was the feeling then?
I felt quite upset about it, although after the exam immediately I had known that my score would most likely to be 7.5. I tried to convince myself that I would get an overall of band 8, but in reality it was 7.5, so it was quite disappointing for me. And after that I felt like I had to retake my exam once again, and I felt like I could definitely get a band 8 overall because of the reading passage that was quite difficult for me in my first attempt, and in my second attempt it was pretty easy.
So easier compared to the first attempt. Let's come to all the 4 modules. Before the result that you achieved today, which do you think was the most challenging module for you? Was it listening or speaking or reading or writing?
It was writing actually, especially task 1 report. It was bar chart that I struggled a lot. Apart from being left about 15 minutes for bar chart itself, I struggled a lot how to write a good overall for task 1, because you know the overview is the most important thing in task 1.
So how were your preparations to improve your writing? Let's start with writing, because you talked about writing. What did you do in the last many years or maybe months to prepare yourself for this test in writing?
I prepared, but not as I used to do. You know, during the past few months I mainly practiced with my listening, reading and speaking, and writing seems to be quite neglected, seemed to be quite neglected in the past months. However, I used to understand the difference between a band 6 and a band 7 report and so on, and in my opinion this helped me a lot to get a band 7 in writing.
Wonderful. Let's come to speaking. How were your preparations?
I was confident about my speaking, because in mock tests I scored 7.5 twice, so it gave me such sort of self-confidence. And in my exam, however, in my first attempt, I struggled because of exam pressure or something. I don't know exactly. However, in my second attempt, I felt like
You were more comfortable.
yes.
So, which part in speaking is more challenging for you? Like in writing, you talked about task one, and which part is more difficult or more challenging for you in speaking?
In my first attempt,
Overall, altogether, which part do you struggle more?
altogether, it would be part two because, you know, especially whenever I encounter some unexpected topics, I struggle a lot about how to create ideas and how to create good grammar structures.
Do you remember your topic for part two in your first attempt?
It was something about invention, if I'm not mistaken.
And what about the topic in your second attempt in part two?
In my second attempt, it was interesting discussion.
All right. And you think you did better in the second attempt?
Yes, I thought like that, but in
The
reality,
scores are the same.
yes.
Let's go ahead and talk about listening and reading. You have a band 9 in listening and of course 8.5 in reading. A massive success, I think. You would rate it like that. Tell us about your preparations for listening.
For listening, at first, whenever I struggled a lot, especially in part 3, I used to rely on approach, namely note taking. At first, I used to write down the question itself, and then whenever I listened to the audio, at the same time, I also used it to write the most necessary notes. And in my opinion, this helped me a lot in my listening to get a band 9. As for my reading,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Does that mean part 4 was always difficult for you? I beg your pardon, but part 3 was more difficult for you in listening?
Part 3 seems to be quite difficult for me compared to some other parts, but sometimes I struggle a lot in part 4 as well.
Part 4 as well. So that means your struggles were mostly from questions 21 to 40.
Yes.
Okay, so which was more difficult, 21 to 30 or 31 to 40?
My first attempt?
Altogether.
Altogether, it was from 21 to 30.
So that was the most challenging one. But you have overcome all those challenges and scored a 9. Congratulations again. So let's come to reading now. Well, I'm sure many of the viewers will be interested to know about it. How did you manage to get that 8.5 in reading?
Whenever my reading level was at B2 level, if I'm not mistaken. I used to read articles on a daily basis. I just picked one article for my day, for a single day, and at first I used to read it and guess the unfamiliar vocabulary, and then I used to read that article twice or 3 times to understand its meaning 100%, and after that I used to retell myself about the meaning of that article, and it helped me improve my reading comprehension.
Just want to make it specific. I think many of the people who will be watching this video will be asking the same question. Were you practicing with IELTS materials for reading, or were you reading other documents like journals or articles in general and trying to improve your reading skills in general?
I used to read articles, but I also dealt with reading passages. And whenever I made mistakes, I used to analyze each mistake I made in my reading. And every time, whenever I dealt with reading, my aim was to find 40 out of 40, not just to choose random answers in like an hour.
So were those attempts timed, or you were not really bothered about timing? You just did it. Your motive was to find all the answers correct.
During the past few months, everything was under time pressure. I did everything under time pressure, and it helped me increase my time management skills. However, about 5 or 6 months ago, I used to find all the questions correctly without paying attention to the time.
Okay, so slow start and then you took the pace, right? Well done. I just want to ask you one more thing. I know you've been learning English language for the last many years, and you've been practicing listening or reading, whatever. But when was it actually you really started preparing for IELTS? Was it last year? Was it this year? Was it 3 years back? When was it?
It was whenever I was a ninth grade student here in specialized boarding school. It was in the summer of my ninth grade year period.
So it was last year, previous year.
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to make more attempts to make it better?
My IELTS score?
Yeah.
I have no plans about IELTS because I have some other more important things to take into account.
Absolutely. What is a piece of advice that you would love to give to anyone who is preparing for his or her IELTS test in the future? Would you like to give them any piece of advice?
I would recommend them to be patient during this preparation because for someone it might take so many years to get a high band in IELTS. But for those who practice correctly through tips and through analysis parts, they can get a high score in much shorter period. So I would recommend them to be patient, and I would recommend them to analyze their mistakes, which is the most important thing to take into account.
So learn from your mistakes. Thank you very much for joining. I'm sure all of you enjoyed watching this video. Let's all congratulate Farrux once again. Congratulations, and wish you all the best for your future studies as well. Thanks for joining.
Thank you too.